Now, welcome back to the show. Not many people can claim credit for teaching Liam Neeson how to paddle a dugout canoe, but our next guest can.
Yes, Niamh McAnally, you're very welcome to the show. You are a woman who has battled a lot of natural things around the world, from everything when it comes to storms and a whole lot. But you're joining us from Florida, and I know you were in Ireland. We're going to talk about your book in a second, launching the book Flares Up. But you are joining us from Florida. Now, I know you just bought a house in Florida and we're on the way back. Were you affected by Hurricane Ian?
Hi, thank you. Yes, we were actually. We had a tree come down on the side of the outside part of the house, but thank God we didn't get the storm surge, which is what we were expecting. So the house is in great shape. I mean, it's the same damage as a lot of people in our area. The area looks a little bit like a war zone at the moment, with all the trees, everybody waiting for a pickup, etc. But we're in good shape. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, it's great to talk to you. Glad to hear that. Now, you are, I suppose, royalty, being the daughter of actor Liam McAnally. And we mentioned there in the intro that you taught Liam Neeson how to paddle. Tell us the story, because, of course, your dad was in the Mission, that fabulous movie.
That's right, actually. And I was between jobs at the time, and he was heading out to South America. He said, "Do you want to come with me and, help me out?" And I said, "Sure, no problem at all." And when I got there, they realized that I had a skill set in canoeing and rock climbing and adventure sports. So I ended up getting a job on the stunt team. And one of my jobs was to teach Liam Neeson how to paddle a dugout canoe. That's me actually in costume for one of the scenes above the waterfalls.
And how was that? Did he take to it easily? We all know him, of course, from Taken and all that real kind of action movie stuff. Was he good?
Oh my God, in one afternoon, what took me about a year to learn, he had it down pat, no problem.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I told you were managing a hotel in Sarka, the Channel Islands, when the hotel closed, and that set you off on a whole series of adventures. Tell us about this.
So what happened was the hotel closed, like you said, and I was, in the length of one day, I was jobless, homeless, and the only transportation I owned were my feet, because the island I was on was an island without cars. So I thought, okay, what's next? And I decided to find a way to volunteer travel around the world. I'd always wanted to circumnavigate, although by plane. And I found the website, and I went all through South Pacific, mostly remote islands, because that's what I was looking for, like Tonga, Vanuatu, Fiji. And then at the very end, as you can see there's a picture of me on the sailboat. I took on one final project, which was to sail a boat for a solo sailor from Florida to the Bahamas. And that was supposed to last 1 month. And then 1 month turned into 4. And then we realized that we had a spark for each other. And then here we are, married, and have a house now.
And you know what's fabulous? Because you guys lived on the yacht for years, didn't you?
We did. We were 6 years at sea on the yacht, sailing as far north as Maine and in the United States, all the way down to Grenada, almost to South America, all through the Caribbean. Spent years there. Absolutely loved it.
That sounds brilliant.
Now, you were in Antigua, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020.
That's correct. We were in Antigua in 2020, and we were sitting having lunch in the cockpit, and we heard that these two guys were about to row ashore, and we were like 3,000 miles from the Canaries in a 20-foot rowboat. Now, we'd had some like rough conditions in the Atlantic, like 10-day passages, etc. And I couldn't imagine what they would be feeling. So we jumped in our dinghy and we motored out to the mouth of the harbour. And I took a photograph of their moment of triumph, which is when they held their flares up, which is, as you can see now, is the front cover of the book Flares Up, a story bigger than the Atlantic.
But these two guys are fascinating. Tell us about their background.
So the one facing you in that photograph there is Paul. He is a ex-firefighter and had suffered a brain hemorrhage. And he said, okay, I'm going to do something with my life. And he was young. He was in his 50s. And he Googled, he'd met somebody who had actually was going to row across the North Sea. And he was thinking, are you crazy? That's 300 miles. And he goes, yeah, it's a growing sport. So he Googled it and he found out the world's toughest row was to row across the Atlantic from the Canaries to Antigua. He says, I'm going to do that. So the next thing, that's the boat right there, 20 foot long. Can you see that? And at the part on the right hand side of the screen there you're seeing is actually the little cabin that they had. And he found another person, Phil Pugh, who was an adventurer and had kind of made a bargain with God. that he was going to do everything he could say, stay fit for his son, who was born with cerebral palsy. So he was driven by that. Paul was driven by proving all the naysayers in his life wrong. And they took 4 years of struggle to actually even get to the starting line. And then they encounter all sorts of stuff while they're at sea, as you can imagine.
It's a great, story of adventure. And I guess, you to write this book is really fitting because you've had your own adventures, but you realize that there's so much drama out there. And as you said, this massive, massive trip in a tiny boat. So you can totally empathize with everything they went through.
Exactly. And when they came ashore, we invited them onto our sailboat for dinner, and they learned that I was a writer. And I said, I write this story because I was emotionally connected. I was crying when I took that photograph. To me, it was like their Olympic podium moment, And I said, I'll write this story on one condition. It can't be a book about how to row an ocean. But if you'll allow me to dig deep with you emotionally and spiritually as to why you did it, how it affected you, how it affected your families and your children. And in a couple of months after you're finished and you're back, I want you to reflect on how it's changed you as human beings. And if we can get that story, I think that's what the reader's going to want to read. And what I said was, I'm going to write it in the form of a novel. It's a true story. Everything in it is true, but it reads like a novel. So it's a real page turner for that reason.
I was going to say, Paul, I can see Tom Hanks playing Paul in the movie. I don't know who's going to play Phil, maybe Dahi.
Well, maybe Dahi. Well, you know what? You've got an array of famous friends because Jeremy Irons launched the book.
He was a superstar. Jeremy came over. Jeremy has written the foreword for it, and an actual fact as well. If anybody's interested in the audiobook, he narrated the foreword that he wrote.
Oh,
in
great!
The
Well, I'll definitely listen to that because I love his voice.
I like audiobooks.
It's absolute. You just melt when you hear him. He's just an amazing, and he's just a gracious human being. I absolutely adore him. I think he's a wonderful man.
Well, Liam, so glad you're with us today. I'm so glad that you were safe in the storm and the whole lot, and pleasant adventures, because I know you won't stay long in the house before you take to the seas again. So great to have you with us.
Niamh, thank you very much indeed. Here is the book, Flares Up, a story bigger than the Atlantic, and it's out now at all good bookshops.